It's time for Zeb at the Ranch with your host Zeb Bell and newsworthy and noteworthy John Ellis. This podcast will always be brutally honest with integrity and honesty and without low-class, no-class cursing that's in vogue today with illiterate politicians. Now, Zeb at the Ranch.
We're in a smoke-filled room. No, we're not playing poker. No, there's not cigars. It is really smoky here in southern Idaho, and it's supposed to clear out a little bit towards the weekend, but we will see. Good afternoon, everybody. Episode 44 of Zeb at the Ranch. God bless America, and please, God, bless our troops that are in harm's way. And we always start off our podcast every week with a quotation, and I found this one. And after all that's been going on with our Congress and our Senate saying about whether or not to pass, here is a quotation from Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She said this not that long ago. She said, Republicans are trying to rig elections by only allowing U.S. citizens to vote. John, you got to comment on that. I mean, how dumb is this woman? I just don't know. Over 100,000 non-citizens in Pennsylvania were on the voter rolls. Look at what happened in New Jersey this last week. They found literally thousands there. What's going on with this left-wing approach to the heck with the Constitution? We're going to let them vote anyway.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I did actually pull the earbud out of her ear and listen to what she had playing on her phone. It was simply this: breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out.
Repeat.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, some of the dumbest people in the world are involved in politics.
Yep.
What is going to happen on today's program has really got me excited for the quality and the caliber of people coming on. What's the matter with us, the United States? You and me, everybody else out there listening to this podcast. We're sitting back and we're drinking the Kool-Aid while the evil Satan's called the Democratic Socialists. No, I'm not going to call them Democratic Socialists. They're dirty communists is what they are. Yeah. And they're trying to destroy our country and capitalism. And in just a few minutes, we're going to be visiting with economics professor Dr. Michael Busler at about 1:30 past the hour for the podcast. But right now, we're getting all set to talk about AI, another subject that I don't talk about very much because I don't understand it as much as I should. It's very scary to me. And a major reason why the left is demanding bigger government is because of AI. Now, I got to think that one over. We're going to talk to the executive director of the Climate Science Coalition, Steve Goreham. He's going to be here, and we'll have the last part of our podcast today is going to be John and I talking about a subject, and he thought I was joking when I mentioned this to him a couple of days ago about the absolute lunacy and the evil of the transgender doll. I'm not fooling folks.
If you haven't lost his mind.
Yeah, you thought I did until you saw it written in black and white.
I did.
Transgender dolls given to 4-year-olds in Minnesota and primarily pushed and promoted by this lunatic governor, Tim Walz. But right now, we're going to calm things down a little bit. Not really, because I agree with everything he's about ready to say. We're going to have, of course, our Libertarian Minute with Mr. John Ellis. Good morning. Good afternoon.
All right. Let's see what we can do today. So did you know that in 1933, President Roosevelt signed an executive order that made it essentially illegal for most Americans to own gold? That's when the United States went off the gold standard domestically. In 1971, President Nixon put the nail in the coffin of sound money when he announced that the United States would no longer convert dollars to gold at a fixed value for foreign banks, thus completely abandoning the gold standard. When people use money that isn't actually tied to anything of intrinsic value, they risk the same fate as the German Weimar Republic. Germany, and I got to get this little picture up for you guys to see. It is something else. We're going to, you got a little something going on behind there, but you're going to see Germany abandoned gold-based currency in 1914, thinking that they would win the war and gain the spoils.
Yeah.
Didn't quite work out like that. They lost the war, and by 1923, some say it took a wheelbarrow full of money just to buy a loaf of bread.
Mm.
When the country's economy rests on monopoly money, it becomes built on a house of cards. If you take a look at how much the national debt has increased since Nixon, our house of cards looks astonishing, and this chart is already out of date.
Wow.
Anyone who thinks that we can actually be able to pay it off doesn't have a firm grip on reality. The long-term solution is to convince our political leaders to get our country back on the gold standard. Absent that, it might not hurt to have a little gold or silver or even toilet paper and bullets.
John, I agree with your concept here of your libertarian minute, but in a very simplistic fashion, I'm going to ask you, how do we know, as citizens of this great country, right now that we have gold in Fort Knox to back up our economy?
Well, my good buddy Rand Paul has been like a dog with a bone trying to do a couple things, him and his father Ron. Audit the Fed, for one thing, which in my opinion is an illegal group. And the second thing is to actually physically go to Fort Knox and show me the money.
Yeah.
I want to see it.
A country like ours, based upon supposition that the gold is there, we're just basically waving paper in the air and saying, here we are, we're solvent.
Yeah. It's pretty insane, really. So I don't know what they're thinking about that. It's just nuts.
What would you do to correct that situation? I mean, you're talking about Fort Knox. We're talking about the gold standard. We're talking about paper money in my pocket and yours right now, very little in my pocket. And how do we know what it's actually worth? I mean, we're $38 trillion plus in debt right now. What's backing that $38 trillion?
The good full faith of the government, which right now I'm not feeling real faithful about.
Absolutely.
So,
John, I appreciate your libertarian minute. We have had a tendency to agree on almost every one of them that you've put forth. Thank you very much. Now, I believe we're about ready to go with our first guest, and John, just nod your head if I can go ahead with his introduction. And he said no. So I'll remind everybody that you would like mute 3. I can do that. I did it. And ladies and gentlemen, right now, we're very happy to have the executive director of the Climate Science Coalition of America and author of 4 books on energy, climate change, sustainable development, and public policy with over 100,000 copies in print. His latest book is Green Breakdown, The Coming Renewable Energy Failure. And here we go with a gentleman that's been here many times, and I hope he's many times more, Steve Goreham. Good afternoon, sir. How are you? There we go. Steve, are you there?
oh, hang on.
Waiting to make the connection with Mr. Steve Goreham on our program for this afternoon. And hopefully we can get that connection. By the way, don't forget, if you have any questions or comments, give us a jingle at zebattheranch@hotmail.com. That's the email, zebattheranch@hotmail.com. Or get a hold of us going through zebbell.com, and be sure and sign up for my weekly cow pies and coffee cups.
Steve Goreham. Sorry I missed your call. Please.
I'm getting an answering machine.
We'll get him on here in just a minute. I'm going to just talk to him for just a second.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, by the way, future programs and podcasts, if you'd like to be a part of it or know someone that would, get a hold of us and let us know some of your thoughts on various subjects. I know that we've been blessed with having some of the nation's most prominent people in those various subjects coming onto our podcast, and this is one of them in just a moment. Steve Goreham, as I said, the executive director of the Climate Science Coalition of America. And he's written a lot of books about climate change, or the lack thereof, if you will. And we're going to talk today primarily about AI, what it is. It's an AI revolution. Some people are backing it. Some people are not supporting it. And we'll have to see if we can't get him on the air right now. John, is he there?
Give him a shot.
All right. Steve Goreham, good afternoon, sir. I've already given you your introduction. Are you there, sir?
I'm here, Zeb.
Oh.
Great to join you today.
Glad to have you with us, and thank you for taking the time to come on our program. Steve, to start things off with, I do not understand AI. And in many reasons for that, I don't want to understand AI. It's a topic and a subject that I'm a little bit more than afraid of, and it seems like it's being pushed and thrust upon us. Bring us up to speed as to what is happening with AI, how big is it right now, and how big is it going to be?
Well, it's going to be huge, Zeb. It's what technologists have figured out how to do is take all the information that's on the internet and run it through a matrix system that is able to minimize errors and select information to get the proper answer. It's sort of like a pattern matching thing. It doesn't really think for itself, but it's able to basically take all the information and figure out what the answer is that is to a question that is posed on it. And it's just a huge thing right now. We have the big guys, the hyperscalers, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Oracle, and I'm missing one. That are spending $750 billion this year on data centers, and they're going to spend $1 trillion probably next year. These are just fantastically huge numbers, and the artificial intelligence that is in place now is going to grow by a factor of 10 within the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's being used by many businesses to solve problems, and everything from your all kinds of different identification systems. It's just a very big thing. Here's a single example. My son is the director of a number of software teams at a bank, and a year and a half ago he said he was kind of poo-pooing AI. Now he says they're writing all of their software with AI, and they're testing all of it with AI. It has really become an explosion. It's very, very big. It's going to occur. And there's good and bad about AI that we're going to have to adjust to and utilize.
Steve, what are and again, you're going to probably wrinkle your eyebrows and have a furrow in your brow over these stupid, naive questions of mine, but how high is up? What are the limitations of AI? What can happen that would be absolutely serious and devastating to mankind and the human brain? I mean, are we letting the camel stick his nose under the tent and eventually take over the tent?
Well, I don't think so. I'm on the side that this is not going to provide a threat to humanity overall. I do think we have. It's going to transform industries in terms of jobs. It's going to take away many jobs that AI is going to be able to do, but it's going to be able to create jobs as well that are different sorts of things. So tremendous transition. The other thing about this is it is occurring so fast. And again, others have different views, but there's always an off switch for this stuff. It really doesn't think on its own. It's kind of a big pattern matching method, and also it can develop analogies. If it can see the entire information on the internet, it can come up with conclusions that are new and creative, and so they're able to do that. But this is the fastest growing product in history. In November of 2022, when ChatGPT was introduced by OpenAI, it attracted more than 1 million users within 5 days and 100 million users within 2 months. And that 100 million users took TikTok 9 months to achieve, and Instagram 2.5 years. It was able to do it in 2 months. So it has really moved through all of society very, very quickly. And just some of the things, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, but what are the negative effects? You can't have growth like that and almost a complete takeover of civilization without having negativity. I mean, what are things that we need to watch for? What are things that we need to govern? What are things that we need to maybe not even open the door for? Certainly, there's got to be some negative effects.
Yeah, well, there's many, many problems. First off, a lot of the information that was fed into these things, something like 100,000 books and all of Wikipedia and many other things. A lot of this is copyrighted, and that's a problem there. And also, these models were trained on basically information from human society. So all of the problems with humanity, it reflects. So if there's racism, and if there's sexism, and if there's a whole bunch of other things that humanity reflects, these models start reflecting it as well. So the big model makers are trying to build in safeguards so this stuff doesn't come out in the answers. Things like if you're a doctor, it expects you to be a male. Those sorts of things are just put into all these models. Homework is no longer effective. These models can do math problems. They can write essays. And so more than half the high school students in the country are using it now. And so education has to be revamped.
Yeah, well, wait a minute. Whoa, stop right there, though. You make an excellent point about education. Are we really educating our kids by taking education away from them?
Well, I think you have to do it a little different way. I think you're going to have to, when you get in on a test, you have to handwrite the answer. You have to handwrite the essays and those sorts of things. I think there's ways that education can adjust, but it has done just amazing things. I mean, here's some of the things that AI can do. It can create audio, images, and videos if you give it questions. It can write prose and poetry, and it can translate dozens of languages. It can generate cartoons and screenplays. It makes letters to the editor and provides parenting advice. If you want to travel to Boise, Idaho for a weekend, it can give you a complete rundown on where to stay, what to see, costs, and all sorts of things. It generates computer code now. You can give it human language questions, and it'll generate computer code. So there's just many, many things that these models can do. And the way they've gotten to be this way is three different factors. One is a vast increase in computer capability. Computer algorithms have been growing for many, many years. The second thing is the vast amounts of information. As I say, they basically feed the entire internet into these models. And so these models are so big, there are billions of parameters. They can search the internet within a few seconds and come up with an answer. And then the other thing is
Keep going, Steve. I bumped the button. Oh, I think I scared him. Please don't quit me. I leaned over and hit the wrong button, which is not unusual.
Well, that's fine.
Okay.
So the impacts on society here are their job changes as well, but they're also building these data centers all over the country. And we've talked about that some before. And these data centers would house the AI servers and the boards. And there are thousands of these now. We're approaching 5,000 data centers in the country. These things are like big warehouses. And, it isn't something you want next to your house. I don't want a big warehouse next to my house either. But they're building these all over the country, and it's a big deal. Now, Idaho, for example, had only 5 data centers 2 years ago, and the data centers typically run the internet, and they do cloud storage. Now Idaho has 17 data centers. They've more than tripled the number of data centers in the last few years, and we have other states building many, many more. Texas has built 200 data centers in 2 years.
Wow.
And these are the things that house the AI boards and servers, and they use huge amounts of electricity. And if the technology isn't right, they can use large amounts of water as well. And so communities are kind of pushing back all over the country about the water and the power. And the AI builders are coming to terms with that. They're being more open, and they're trying to find ways not to impact local communities. But it's a huge revolution.
Steve, I got a question. And first, thank you so much for your patience with us. We're having some technical issues in our area in multiple ways, and so it's really been kind of hard to get this cat in the bag. But on the issue of these on the water usage, isn't water fundamentally 100% renewable anyway? I mean, all you got to do is really just manage it.
Well, it is, except now, and there's a lot of bad press about water usage. A lot of the data centers are cooled with water. They water cool the boards and the servers. They evaporate. Now, if you're just using evaporative cooling, that's bad because they can use huge amounts of water. Water keeps coming in and keeps evaporating. But there are other systems that are better. I was in a data center near Houston recently, a small data center, and they just did air cooling. If it's a small one, they can use air.
Oh.
But the best thing is to have a recirculating system, so that water cools the boards, it evaporates, it is trapped in a contained system, it condenses again, and it's reused again.
Yeah.
And when you use those systems, you don't use a lot of water. They also have some new ones, which are oils, non-conducting fluids. But the problem has been that data centers have gone out and built these things with local communities and not really informed the public. And so the public is worried about water. The public is worried about their electric bills going up. We're now seeing a big transition. The big hyperscalers, Google and Microsoft and others, are trying to do better at informing the communities. And it's important to make sure that these folks are being open and transparent about what they're doing with power and what they're doing with water. Power is another thing. Some of these data centers use more than cities, a single data center. And what they're doing is they're building their own power plants. And when you do that, then you're not impacting the cost of electricity for citizens. So the cities and the counties need to know what the plan is for the water and power. And the data center people have to be open with them about that. And once they start doing that, they can get together and come up with a plan. Another thing is where it's located. They shouldn't be right next to residential areas.
Yeah.
But you can find areas that are away from towns a little bit, zoned industrial, and you can build these things. And that's what's going to occur as we go forward.
John, you got something else?
Yeah, just as a follow-up, I mean, I'm glad to hear you talk about having the ability to shut it off, because all we can ever think about is Skynet and Terminator and all that stuff, and that's a legitimate fear, I think, but it needs to be assuaged. But the now I just lost my train of thought. This day has been something else. Let me tell you what. Now I know it was. This in a way, it feels to me like the Industrial Revolution, where there was a huge amount of fear factor going into that, but it really did transform our society into more productive, and actually we don't have to work near as hard as we did back then.
Well, I think it is going to be a big thing and a good thing, but it is huge, and it's happening much faster than the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
It's such a rapid change on everything, and that's what's going on. Vast amount of money. Now, again, I think I said that Google, Meta, Microsoft, and Amazon were spending $750 billion this year. It's going to be over $1 trillion in a year or two. And the comparison I like to make is the United States. All of our primary and high school education is about $900 billion a year.
Wow.
So what's going into data centers right now is equal to all of the money spent on education below the college level, just a vast amount of money. And this has increased by about a factor of 10 within the last 5 years. It's just a new development.
Well, the
good news is...
Okay, go ahead.
A lot of communities are getting big economic benefits from this. They pay a lot of taxes. They hire people, and so there's some rural areas that are looking forward to this sort of thing. But it is a big issue. And for example, we just had Governor Kathy Hochul in New York put in a 1-year ban on new data center construction, and we're seeing some of that around the country because they want to figure out how to straighten it out. Now, New York is a little bit strange. So New York's only built 6 data centers in the last 2 years.
Wow.
Texas has built 200.
Wow.
So what Kathy Hochul is doing isn't going to have a big effect.
Well, okay, I want to go back, though. You're talking to the biggest skeptic in the world right here. And you're going to have to do a lot of cheerleading to get me to go play in the football game with you on AI. But that's all well and good to say how great things are here for the United States of America. But what about the trust factor of, i.e., Russia or China or anybody that doesn't like us, and they're using AI to thwart us, do everything they can to hurt us? I'm worried about the residual effect coming in from other areas.
Well, and that's a big problem, too. There have been countries that have signed, for example, agreements saying we will not use AI militarily in certain ways. We will not give a decision to kill somebody to AI. The problem is, though, China and Russia may go do that. And we also have a bunch of issues with people trying to scam you. People trying to get into your computer and your systems. AI is going to enhance that. I mean, I get loads of emails every day that are scams, and I can't wait till all the AI stuff gets in there. But these things can also mimic voices. You can't believe a video anymore because AI can create Donald Trump or anybody else talking, and it looks real, but it never really happened. So we've kind of entered an age of skepticism, if we didn't have one already, about all these things. And anytime you see something that's a video or on the internet, you have to question whether it's really correct.
Yeah, there's some video editing software that just had an update to it. And at this point, all I got to do is give it basically 10 seconds of a voice print, and then I can just type anything that I want it to say, and it will sound just like that person.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Steve,
that's a problem.
Real quick, I want to.
People have been scammed out of a lot of money by this already, and so you have to be careful. If you get a call from one of your children and you think they're in trouble, you better be sure that it's really them.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's still, like I said, I've got a great big S on my forehead that says skeptic, and I'm scared of this. Tell us a little bit about your book, Green Breakdown, The Coming Renewable Energy Failure. Do you address these things in the book?
Well, I don't quite address AI in the book because the book came out in 2023 and the revolution just kind of broke right at the same time there. But Green Breakdown is about the efforts of the wealthy nations of the world, U.S., Europe, Canada, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, to try and get everybody to get to net zero emissions by 2050. That is not going to happen. That's a practical impossibility. And it talks about power plants and home appliances and electric vehicles, heavy industry, heavy transportation, carbon dioxide capture and storage, all sorts of things. Talks about how a lot of these things are not going to occur. They can go to my website, Steve Goreham, GOREHAM.com, and order my books. I'll send them a signed copy. And it's also got, in addition to science and economics, it's a color paperback. It has about 150 colored sidebars with crazy headlines. Here's one of them. Feeding cattle seaweed reduces their greenhouse gas emissions 82%. So much for grass-fed beef. Right?
Amen. You know, Steve, answer this real quick. I've only got a minute and a half left in this segment. But are we, the American public, whether they live in Idaho, whether they live in New York, Florida, wherever, are we going to be seeing a forced, huge transition in our living and our lifestyle because of AI?
Well, I think some of that's already occurring. AI is here, just like your Google Alexa that's run by AI. Things that recognize signatures for banks. I mean, there's a lot of things where it's being deployed already. Probably some of the biggest things are autonomous vehicles, which are going to run by AI. They're having a little trouble catching on because they got a bunch of issues. Robotics is another one that potentially can come along. We just have to see how these things go, but there are many, many applications, medical applications, finding new drugs. Many are good things, but it's the age of skepticism. You got to be a little bit aware about the rest of the stuff.
There you go. I want to apologize to you for buttons being pushed and music in your ear. It's been one of those days where after this podcast, I might just walk out on my porch, crack open a beer, and sit there and enjoy it. That's the mood I'm in right now. Steve Goreham, God bless you.
By the way, if you're getting smoke from fires coming there to Idaho, that's not due to man-made global warming.
No,
that's exactly right.
It's other things. So careful about what they tell you.
Amen. Executive Director of the Climate Science Coalition of America and a real good friend of this podcast, Steve Goreham. God bless you, man. Come back soon, please.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. John, I want to apologize to you. It was not your fault. It was yours truly that put his little fat finger on the wrong button just a little bit ago.
Well, I've been making my own series of unforced errors.
But we're here.
Yes.
We're alive.
Yeah.
We're not well.
No.
Do we have our next man ready to go?
He'll be coming in shortly. You just give him a little more information about the program.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we have fun. We sweat a lot in this office with some mistakes that I make. Zeb at the ranch at hotmail.com. Be sure and let us know what you think. Oh, and by the way, don't get confused at the first at. It is the word A-T, Zeb at the ranch, then the at sign, hotmail.com. Send us any notes you would about our podcast, our guests, etc. Then, if you'd like to tune into the program, don't forget zebbell.com. Zebbell.com, and you'll have the instructions as to what to do to listen to the podcast every Wednesday at 1 o'clock Mountain Time. And you can also go to zebbell.com and sign up for our Cow Pies and Coffee Cups, my blog that I write weekly, thanks to our dear friends at Les Schwab Tire Centers. We really appreciate their involvement. Whew, with all that, do you have enough fill?
Not quite, but we're getting there.
Oh, my.
Yeah, I talked to Dr. Busler. He'll be calling in here any second.
It's been one of those days where, like, you bought a new tube of deodorant, but you need more.
Yeah. Well, I was entertained by your rant this week with the newsletter and the tattoos, and I know several people that I don't feel the same way about them that you do. In fact, and you're probably going to hang me out to dry on this, we got our daughter on her 16th birthday, a little heart on her back, and now she looks like she's got a lot of tattoos now.
I can live with a little tattoo, but I told you about a guy that I saw.
Yeah.
Well, walk into a store, and he had a pair of shorts on, a basketball shirt, and sandals, and his entire body was covered with tattoos. And I just wonder what they're going to look like and how people are going to react 35 years from now when he's living in a retirement home.
Well, that cute little rose might end up looking like a very long stem rose, about a dozen of them.
Yeah, and his bald head was solid tattoos. And like I said in the blog, little kids could use him, hide him in the bushes. We'll find him for extra prizes at the Easter egg hunt.
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness sakes, I think that's overdoing it.
Well, to each his own, and you know how I feel about things like that. As long as you don't bother me or force me into it.
I know.
You'd have to have 5 people hold me down to get one for me.
I know. I know that you're libertarian, and whatever happens somebody else wants to do, go ahead. I'm just one of those guys that I just think it's a waste of money. And I will say this, a lot of those people that go get tattoos, they can't afford them.
That is a big issue, and I don't want to get into too much detail on that, but my wife has ran into people that complain and whine about the money that they're not making, and they'll come in the next day with a $300 tattoo.
Or more.
Yeah, and it's just insane. So I don't understand. If you're going to do it, don't complain that you don't have money. I'll tell you that right off the bat.
Amen. Our dear friend back in New Jersey, Dr. Michael Busler, we are waiting to hear from him and talk about capitalism, talk about the economy. He is a professor at a college back on the East Coast, economics professor, and also a political analyst. And John, is he calling in? Not yet. We are waiting for his call.
Yeah.
And you said yes. A
No.
nice warm day here in southern Idaho with all the smoke. Oh, and by the way, I want to apologize for that. With all this smoke that is lingering outside, yours truly is. I got asthma and hay fever and everything else, and the smoke has really done a number on me. And so I apologize if occasionally I don't hit the mute button on time and cough in your ear, and I apologize for making that sound. Guess who's going to be with us next week? We're going to have my old buddy come back on the program, and that's Frosty Woolridge. We're looking forward to having him come back on the podcast. And then also next week we have a lawyer up in Canada, and that, of course, will be Leighton Gray. But right now we're going to go back to the Jersey Shore. And this gentleman has been on my radio program many, many times and on this podcast many, many times. Good afternoon to a man that I highly respect, that knows what's going on with our economy and what to do or what not to do. Dr. Michael Busler, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Deb. Thanks for the kind words. It's my pleasure to be here.
Let me just start things off this afternoon and ask you this. As a professor of economics and dealing with young people, the Generation Z, et cetera, every day, do they really understand the values of capitalism, private-owned production and distribution of goods for profit? Why do they want to push communism? What's going on here?
Well, I think the problem is that they don't fully understand capitalism. Part of the problem is that a lot of the professors in their classrooms don't present it very objectively, and rather present many of the negative points of capitalism. The other thing that I find is students are seeing some of the recent graduates who aren't, now many of them are doing very well, the recent graduates, but there are a number who are having difficulty finding a job, or they're having difficulty finding a job with a decent salary. Part of the problem is that they've majored in something that they have an interest in, which is great, but it's really doesn't develop any marketable skills. And today, you go to work in anywhere, your employer is concerned with you being able to do the job, understand what has to be done, and get the job done. Once they get out in the real world, I think they'll learn that in capitalism, a person is paid according to the value of their output.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not doing very much, or doing a job that doesn't require many skills, you're not going to get paid a lot. And instead of trying to improve yourself and be able to make yourself more productive and be able to do something that's in demand, they start getting upset and saying, wait a minute, look at all these other people have all this money and I'm barely squeezing by here. These socialists tell me they're going to pay for all my bills. So maybe the socialism's not such a bad idea.
Well, let me interrupt you right there. Let me interrupt you, my dear friend. You made a point.
Really?
Do these students, these younger people, do they really care about a job? Or are they part of the group that's standing there on the TV news every night saying, I want everything free. I want free buses. I want free food. I want everything free. I want my rent lowered. I want everything handed to me without really worrying about the responsibility of a job.
So there are, unfortunately, a large percentage of college students who believe that. Now, I teach in the business school, and everything's very business-oriented, and the students I teach in economics, I emphasize the principles of capitalism, how it encourages individual freedom, encourages individual responsibility, typically has low rates of taxation, and a relatively limited role for government. Those principles, along with the concept of private property, and we did have abundant resources, but those principles took the U.S. from the birth of a nation to the largest, most prosperous economy in the world in about 150 years. Other economies were hundreds, in some cases thousands of years older. So I emphasize to them how important individual freedom is and individual responsibility, low rates of taxation, and a limited role for government. If you want something, you have to earn it. You can't have the government give it to you, because you have to know that the government doesn't have any money.
Yes.
All they have is what they take from the taxpayers. So when you ask the government to pay for something for you, you're asking for somebody who pays for their own rent, let's say, and then has to pay taxes that cover your rent, or they're paying for their own health care, and then they have to pay more in taxes to cover your health care. I argue to them that it simply isn't fair. At some point in your life, I hope, you become successful and you're contributing and you're earning a good income. And when you see all of the taxes that are taken out of your pay, you're going to realize that the socialism really doesn't work.
John, you've got something.
I see that better.
Yeah, Dr. Busler, you are singing my song. I tell you what, I love when you speak. It's as simple as that. You know, I had a niece that said, "Oh, well, you don't even notice those taxes are missing. They just take them out of your paycheck," which got the back of my neck standing straight up. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the problem that we're having nowadays that people look at and condemn capitalism isn't capitalism, it's crony capitalism, and we haven't really had truly free markets for a very long time now.
Yeah, we're certainly trying to get on to free markets, but mostly because the government doesn't feel something is fair. Then the government intrudes in some of these markets, and now they're not free markets anymore. Now, on the other side, people argue, well, look, some of these capitalists have huge amounts of money. Don't they really control things? I can't really do what I want. They're the ones that control things. And I tell them that's not true. Even the most powerful, profitable corporation in the country can go under in a day.
Yep.
If consumers don't buy their product.
That's right.
So all those corporations are making large amounts of money. Apple's making billions. I think they're worth over $2 trillion now, their market cap. But they're doing that because they're giving people exactly what they want at exactly the price they're willing to pay.
Yep.
And that's how you become successful. If they stop doing that, if they try to give consumers products they really don't want, then consumers aren't going to buy them, and they'll look for alternatives, and the company won't do very well. It's the consumers in the marketplace that really determine what products are made, how they're made, the price they sell for, et cetera. So some of these students, I think they just don't know.
Yeah.
What are you telling these people, or what better message can we put out on behalf of the media to start informing people? I mean, my goodness, they want to get rid of the Constitution. They want to get rid of the Senate. They want to get rid of the presidency. They want to get rid of the Supreme Court. They want Medicare for all. They want to have everything handed to them. They want open borders. My goodness, Dr. Busler, we're seeing possibly, very possibly, the destruction of 250 years of blood, sweat, tears, and lives that made this country great just disintegrate.
And that's exactly what would happen if these democratic socialists are able to win enough seats and try to put some of their programs in place. Take a look at history. Every time we have tried some kind of socialism, it doesn't work. Now, people say, well, what about Scandinavia? Those countries, they're happy people and they're doing well, and that's true. But they don't have true socialism. They have a free democracy. It's a capitalistic system. In capitalism, what we have to decide is what the role of government is.
Yep.
I said before, we should have a limited role for government. But over time, even in the U.S., we said, look, we're very prosperous. We have an obligation to take care of the elderly. So we put in Social Security. Now, people at the time said, isn't that socialism? And I would argue, no. It's just a social program. Mature capitalistic economies take care of everybody. So they don't give a whole lot of stuff free. I mean, Social Security, people pay into it. And then when you're old enough so they have to go bankrupt first. When you're old enough, you're going to get a payment. Medicare, you pay for that the whole time you're working. As soon as you turn 65, Medicare is there for you. So these aren't social programs in that the government is paying for something for you. The government is collecting the money from you, and then when you get old enough, then you'll benefit from those programs. A capitalistic economy can have, I would say, a minimum amount of social programs, and that's not anything bad with capitalism. It's just that capitalism recognizes they have a social responsibility. I didn't say, when I talked before, there was no role for government. I said a limited role for government. So we can put these programs in and it works, but we have to encourage freedom so that people know that, hey, I want to try something. The government's going to get out of the way. Let you try it. And if you're successful, and there's a lot of risk involved, but if you're successful, we're going to keep low rates of taxation so you get to keep most of what you earned. The way to really end this socialism problem is to have prosperity. And when there is prosperity and there's opportunities for every well-prepared American, there will be no need for people to say the government has to give me something. I can earn it myself. I feel better about myself because I don't depend on anybody, and I earn this myself.
Amen. You know, one point I want to make before we have to let you go, time-wise, they want no borders. They want everybody to be able to migrate between whatever country, whether it's Mexico, South American countries, here to the United States, whatever, just kind of a revolving door policy. My question would be, and I don't nearly have the education that you have, who's going to pay the bills? Who's going to take care of the taxes when you've got a open door philosophy of letting people in, letting people out? How are you going to get a tax base out of that kind of a migration policy?
Yeah, so what's going to happen if you let those people in? Look, nobody's against immigration. The U.S. lets in over 1 million, legally, over 1 million people a year. My parents were immigrants. They came legally and did what they had to do. But like Canada's system, they let a lot of people in, but it's based on merit. They just don't let in anybody. Yeah. You have to show that you can take care of yourself and you're not going to be a burden on the system. That's really what we need. Look, I'm very sympathetic to all these people in South America that live in very difficult conditions and you don't have to worry about corruption and feeding themselves. I'm very sympathetic. But we have to take care of Americans first. Once we take care of Americans, we're willing to help where we can, but really people have to help themselves instead of waiting for the U.S. to come and help everybody. And that's the principles that we have to get our younger people to understand. And once they do, and if we can get rid of this Iran war, which should have been over months ago,
Absolutely.
If we can get rid of it, bring the inflation rate down, the economy is going to boom. Capital investment is up over 10%. The economy is ready to grow. There's factories being built. There's more jobs being created. We just have to get rid of this Iran problem so energy costs come down, the inflation rate comes down, the economy is going to take off. And when people see that prosperity, they'll forget about this socialism.
That's a great point, Dr. Busler. Backing up just a little bit, one of the things that always entertains me is that people say, let's tax the corporations, but corporations don't pay taxes. That's just an expense, like lighting, heating, and employees. It's just passed off to the customer. So what people are actually saying, let's tax ourselves when they want to tax the corporations.
Yep, that's right.
Exactly. Corporations don't pay taxes. I mean, they do at the end of the year, but they collect taxes.
Right.
So if the government says you have to pay so much in taxes, they have to maintain their profitability or they're not going to be there. So if their costs go up because taxes went up, they're going to have to raise the price to cover it, again, to maintain their profitability. So it's really the people that pay the taxes. When you get to the bottom line, only people pay taxes, period.
Yep.
Only people pay taxes.
Well,
That's what we should work on.
let me ask you this quickly, and we're almost out of time, but on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. On a scale of 1 to 10 for being worried or not about the democratic socialists, communists taking over and having power, how concerned are you right now on a 1 to 10 scale?
So everything looks bad now in all these Democratic primaries. I'm not that worried. I think that when we get to the general election, the socialists are not going to do that well, and I tend to be very optimistic, so I hope this is right. But they're not going to do that well, and I think the Republicans will maintain the House and the Senate, and of course they have the presidency. The whole key, we have to get this Iran thing over as quickly as possible.
Yes.
So inflation comes down, then the Democrats have nothing to run on.
Amen.
Yeah.
Dr. Busler, you are a gift to come on our podcast. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Professor of economics and political analyst, I really appreciate his good words. Dr. Michael Busler, God bless. We'll have you back soon.
Thank you, Zeb. Always my pleasure.
Thank you, sir. I enjoy him, John. Quite a guy.
He's one of my favorites. I'm telling you, he's singing to the choir right off the bat.
Oh,
Yeah.
Talk about singing to the choir. Oh, you want me to turn that off? I can do that. I hit the right button this time. You know, that was so embarrassing earlier for me to I was dancing like Liberace on all these buttons by mistake. Thank you. One thing I want to get into before we have to wrap things up for today, a couple of personal notes first. As you noticed, we normally have at this time our segment called Why Not God? And Pastor Alex Lissau had some recent surgery and is recuperating along with his lovely wife Barbara back in Tennessee. And I talked to him yesterday, and he's chomping on the bit to be healthy enough, hopefully by this next Wednesday, to come back on our podcast with the Why Not God segment.
Yep. Well, I'm looking forward to him. I sure love the guy, and I just wish the well, but God's will be done in his life, and I'm sure he would agree. So whether he's back with us or not, we're just going to leave it in the hands of God for that.
If he were part of the program right now for this next subject matter that I'm going to throw at you, I can guarantee you he would climb through the phone wire and be so mad and upset as to what's going on in our society. I called you last week, and you were at your office, and I said, John, are you aware that in Minnesota, the absolutely, I think, satanic governor, Tim Walz, is really pushing along with the Minnesota legislature. They're handing out taxpayer-funded. Now, those are key words right there. In other words, the taxpayers are paying for this incensed evil. Transgender dolls in classrooms going to kids as young as 4 years old. Now, what these dolls are, and I'm going to give a rough synopsis, and I'm going to be blunt. After I cough, take it for a minute, John.
You got to excuse us, folks. We've got some really bad smoke in the area
it's
right
terrible.
now. I feel like I was smoking Camel Studs again.
No, I never smoked, but I feel like I have been for 30 years. But these dolls are transgender dolls to where you can take and change the genitalia from male to female and dress them as you wish. And these are all to perpetrate the idea of you can be whatever sex you want to be. And this is what they're putting out to the kids as young as 4 years old in Minnesota.
Hold that up to the camera. When Zeb called me about this, he comes up with some pretty crazy things. And when he told me this, I thought, man, he must be reading the National Enquirer because he has lost his mind. And then I went and looked myself, and there it is. What I don't understand is even 10 years ago, the thought was, just leave us alone. We just want to live our lives like we want to, and we don't want to force this on anybody. And now we're trying to jam it down the throats of 4-year-olds?
The University of Minnesota Medical School for Children started this program.
Medical school?
Yeah, and was pushing it. And they said they want kids to learn about the different options that exist for who they can be. Right there, I'm going to get real mad in a cowboy way and say that I'll punch anybody in the nose that tries to promote this idea.
Oh, man.
They're saying, learn about the different options that exist for who they can be. God knows what they should be and promoted them as a human being, male and female. And it's not up for anybody anybody to let these kids pick different options about who they want to be sexually.
Well, I do this hesitatingly, but let's take God out of the equation for just a moment, okay? We're talking about a group of people who, when we were talking about having our objections to climate change, called us flat earthers and unscientific. And I'm telling you, folks, you can look in any textbook and you can see two things. One, human life begins at conception. That's in the college textbooks on embryology. And number two, who you are as male or female. And what's his name? Dawkins, who hates conservatives and Christians, tells you there's only two genders.
That's right.
And because it's scientific. But now we're going to play make-believe with these children and confuse them about science.
You know, what you just said, make-believe. Let me read this paragraph to you. And again, it's blunt. It's on the story about these dolls. Prototypes of the dolls have been shown at teachers and education conferences, and were one called Sam appeared to have undergone a partial sex change with a detachable penis.
Wow.
On one side of the toy and a dress and girls' underwear on the other. Why are they messing with these kids' minds? And here's what they said. Well, the trans dolls promise to make gender fun. This is sick, John. Absolutely sick.
Well,
and it's being permeated with our kids 4 years of age.
It comes from an underlying desire by a small group of people to erode anything that has stability and truth and a base in our society so that they can pop this communism in there. That's all I can think of.
You know, and Dr. Quentin Van Meter, the former president of the American College of Pediatricians, a very conservative group, thank God, said the dolls have no place in an ethical medical care world. He said children who are persuaded into believing that sex can be changed will become confused, and that the emotional trauma caused by ideologues as parents or teachers or counselors would result in gender dysphoria. What are we doing other than just disrupting the American family and turning it upside down, just like Karl Marx wanted to have happen?
Yep, that's exactly right. We used to have, and very true, very unscientific, gender dysphoria. That's what it was called. Now we just call it fun and options.
But Tim Waltz, wouldn't you like to have 5 minutes in a padded room with Tim Waltz? He's the guy that went out and said that he wanted to have providing all high school students, including boys, with free menstrual products. This is the insanity that's going on in our world today.
Yeah, it's nobody's surprised to say that President Trump is not my most favorite president, but I'm telling you what, we dodged a bullet by avoiding Tim Waltz in the presidency and putting him in power.
What would you do? I know that you don't have any children in school right now, nor do I. But I'll tell you what, if it happens here in southern Idaho, I think all of us should band together to let education know that it ain't going to happen.
Well, that's because everybody here is phobic. Yeah, it's simple that. But truly, I mean, I love God, and I can see in his Bible what he says there about man and woman. But and it flows into science. That's the thing. The Bible is full of science. And if you look at science, basic science, DNA, yeah, there's going to be some mutations, gene mutations along the way. But here's the important point. They're not self-replicating. The vast majority are XY or XX or whatever the heck it is. And that's it, you know. And here we're trying to confuse children who were supposed to be teaching the truth about science, and we're confusing them with this nonsense, and it's just garbage. I don't care what you do as an adult, but stay out of the schools. I don't want you in the schools with the kids.
That's absolutely right. I'm going to end this with a prayer of my own, if you don't mind, as Pastor Alex always would with the conclusion of our podcast and the Why Not God segment. And I'm just going to say it as this. Dear Heavenly Father, there's a lot of trauma going on in the world today. There's a lot of people that are confused. There's a lot of people that are leading the confusion. We need to get back to one source of information that absolutely is not confusing at all, and that's your word in the Holy Bible. And start living. You can read the Bible, but let's start living the Bible. And I urge everyone to please look heavenward and say, Dear Jesus, please come into our lives and help our lives be better and oriented towards the real meaning of why we're here. And that's, of course, Jesus Christ, our Savior, and the good Lord, and heaven above. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
John, thank you. We might also end the podcast by saying this. We sweat a lot in the opening, and we had a few technical difficulties that we managed to ride like a bucking bronc, and we all came out okay, except for yours truly hitting the wrong buttons. But I want to say thank you for all your effort.
Yep. Glad to help out. And once we got on the bull, it seems to steady out just a little bit.
Yeah, you cinched it up pretty good. That bull rope was tight. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, that's our podcast, Zeb at the Ranch, for today. We always say at the end of the podcast, the way things were are the way things ought to be. God bless you and your family.